Om Shruti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krito Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Yomavat Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahabhiryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Apyayantu Mamangani.
Apyayantu mamagani.
Vak Pranachakshus Sotram.
Vak Pranashaktuk Shotram.
Ato Balamindriyani cha sarvani.
Ato Balamindriyani cha sarvani.
Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam.
Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam.
Aham Brahma Nirakuryam.
Aham Brahma Nirakuryam.
Mama Brahma Nirakarot.
Mama Brahma Nirakarot.
Anirakaranamastu Anirakaranam me astu.
Nirakaramastu.
Tadatmani nirate ya upanishadstu dharmaha.
Atmani nirateya upanishadsu dharmaha.
Te mai santu. Te mai santu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We saw the desire for something in this jagat, any object, tangible or intangible, the desire for gaining something after this life, any loka, covers all the desires. These desires start with knowing that there is something to be desired. A desirer is there who desires to know something. A knower is there who wants to know something. And in all these cases, we saw that not only does the person have to start by knowing that such a thing exists, then desiring it because it is desirable, then doing whatever actions are required to gain that, and eventually enjoying the phala, the result of whatever we do. To know anything, we again have a knower, the knowledge, and the object of knowing. This is our experience in life. Anything you want to know, you have to have a knower who wants to know, an object to be known, and the very knowing itself. I know these spectacles because I can see it. I know this is spectacles. I also know something more about it. I know it can be used to enhance my seeing capacity, my sight. I also know many other things. I know it's made of plastic and glass and so on. What is the means by which I know? Because I can see it. This is my means of knowledge. Similarly, when there's night food being cooked in the kitchen, I may be sitting here in the class, but I know there is nice food being cooked. Here I use another means of knowledge, smell. It could be nice smell. It could be a smell which I don't like. Even then I know. You sit in the room and say, wrinkle your nose and say, there seems to be a dead rat in the room. Whether you like it or not, you know it. Because the means of knowledge operates. The means of knowledge operates entirely on its own. That is how we know all objects in this world. Because the means of knowledge are available, and once exposed to the means of knowledge, that data is reported, backed by the mind, we know that object. And what are the means that we use? There are these 5 senses, jnanendriyas. Sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. These are called pratyaksha pramana. I know an object in this world because I can see them, touch them, smell them, hear them, or taste them. And backed by the mind, I know that object. And our normal thinking is that I accept it because my means of knowledge reveal that to me. I cannot say, show you a book and say, this is blue. You will not accept it. Even if you have a lot of shraddha in the teacher, because your means of knowledge says this is yellow. This is not blue. So we have these means of knowledge which operate entirely on their own, called pratyaksha pramana. That's how we know everything in the Jagat. These 5 senses backed by the mind. Senses themselves only report. They have no capacity to process the data. The processing is done by the other antakarana called the mind. Mind-buddhi combination. Therefore, we, as a human being, are skeptical and will not accept anything which is not fed as data by the 5 senses backed by the mind. Not only we, the entire justice system works on this basis. You have witnesses saying, I heard him threatening that person. I heard a gunshot. I actually saw this blue-colored Suzuki car hitting that person and running away. So witnesses make these statements. And their statements are taken absolutely as true. This means of knowledge, the five jnanendriyas, give us this data, which is processed, and these are the pratyaksha pramana. There is another direct means of knowing which doesn't use any of these. They're peculiar. I know I am hungry. I don't need any of the five senses, but something else is there. These five sense-based knowledge called indriya pratyaksham, because they are fit to us by the indriyas. The one that does not use indriyas is called sakshi pratyaksham. That's also direct knowledge. We will see what is indirect knowledge. Indirect knowledge of several types are there. Some philosophies accept only direct knowledge, like court of law. But there are indirect means of knowledge as well. In fact, most of our lives are governed or run by indirect means of knowledge. The stock example for one of these is when we see billows of smoke rising from the mountain. We can see the mountain. We can see the smoke billowing out of the mountain. In the distance, we conclude the mountain is there. The smoke is there because these are directly seen. These are pratyaksha. But we also conclude that there is fire in the mountain. Because there is a invariable concomitance between fire and smoke. Where there is smoke, there has to be fire. Where there is fire, there need not be smoke. But where there is smoke, there has to be fire. This concomitance called vyapti is established through our seeing this over and over and over again in practice. Nobody's ever seen smoke there not being a fire. We have not seen the fire. Fire is there. It's a conclusion. It's an inference. Because we saw the smoke. And we have this connection between the smoke and fire. Therefore, we infer that there is fire. There can be many such examples. All our instruments the car speed, tire pressure, all we don't actually see the tire pressure. But there's an instrument which shows the tire pressure, and we therefore infer that all four tires are fully pressurized or one is leaking. Like I said, most of our lives are run on the basis of not necessarily direct knowledge, pratyaksha knowledge, but by inference called anumana, to infer a certain knowledge. But the important thing is to understand that even to infer a knowledge, there has to be some pratyaksha input. Without my being able to see the mountain, without my being able to see the smoke, I may not be able to infer that there is fire. So there is pratyaksha input of not the what I infer, but of something else from which I infer that there is fire. A smoking chimney will infer that there is fire inside. This kind of inference, called anumana, is the most common usage of gaining a certain knowledge. Yet another method of gaining knowledge is through an example. An old lady is not a good example in today's world because it's so ubiquitous, the cell phone. But a lady who had been living in isolation for a long time only knows that there is an instrument called the telephone, a black telephone with no dial pad, where you pick up the phone and somebody talks to you. You can't tell her that is not true these days. You don't have to run to the telephone when the telephone rings. You can take the telephone wherever you go. And you can talk to anybody else while on the move. And you're trying to tell her about this new technology called cell phone. So what do you tell her? It is like your old phone because you can talk to somebody else on that phone, but it is smaller. You can carry it around. You don't need an electric wire to connect the device to a unit. Even though she's never seen a cell phone, she gets an idea of what the cell phone is because there is something which she knows already. There is pratyaksha jnanam of the old phone, that such a thing is possible. If she didn't even know that, then it's more difficult to explain to her the cell phone. If you give her a cell phone and talk to her from another place, she may just throw it away. Say, what is this? This is the devil. How can you speak through the little instrument? You give her the cell phone and say, party, party. She starts looking around. Where is her parent? Where is he talking from? So you have another object which has some qualities, some attributes which are similar to the object that you're trying to understand, which is known to you. And therefore, you get an idea of this. A person may not have seen a tiger, but he has seen cats. So you can say it's like a cat belongs to the same family, but much bigger and more fierce. You get an idea. This is called upamana. Another means of knowledge called upamana. Then there is a little bit more complicated anumana called arthapatti. Not possible otherwise. How is that? This is like a multi-level inference. Remember, in our pratyaksha, there is already direct knowledge. In anumana, there has to be direct knowledge of something, and there also has to be knowledge of the invariable connection. In the upamana, again, you must have certain direct knowledge of something. Something which is similar to the object that you are trying to learn. So in all cases, there is a pratyaksha involved. This fourth category called arthapatti, let me explain using a stock example. This is Swami G's example. I don't know if it's there in the original text, but you know a person with whom you spend the entire day. From the time he gets up in the morning, you are with him throughout the day working together. And you've been working like this over a period of, let's say, 40, 45 days. During this entire time that you're with him during the day, he doesn't eat, doesn't take a morsel of food. You may be busy working with him during this period, but sometime or the other, you start wondering, he hasn't eaten anything these 40, 45 days I've been with him. How come he is looking as fit and healthy as he was from day one? Here, look at the pratyaksha. One, I have been with him all day for 45 days. I know he has not eaten anything. This is pratyaksha jnana. I know he's not eaten anything for this period. I also have a pratyaksha jnanam of the fact that the person is as healthy, as cheerful, as active as he was on the first day. I start wondering because I have some jnanam which says that any human being who does not eat for such a long time must lose weight, must become thinner, cannot be as active. With all this input and this knowledge, there is an inevitable inference you draw. He must be eating during the night when I am not with him. In the Gurudwaras, they give kada prasad, solid ghee, and you eat one of that, it lasts you 24 hours at least. Maybe he's got a couple of kada prasad tucked away every night. Each kada prasad. Very good stuff, incidentally. Very healthy, very rich. So you draw a conclusion, an inference based on several pratyaksha inputs. Whereas in the case of the Anumana, we do the inference based on only two inputs. Here, several inputs. And you arrive at an inference that he eats at night. This is also knowledge. Yet another fifth category, if you want, for gaining knowledge of the objects of the world, is called anupalabdhi. Upalabdhi is presence. Anupalabdhi is non-presence. I can state confidently that there is no tiger on my hand. What are you saying, Swami G? Yes, there is no tiger on my hand. Because I have a pratyaksha jnanam of the absence of the tiger at that place on my hand at this time. The tiger may be elsewhere at this time. But at this time on my hand it is not. Tomorrow, tiger may be there in my hand, I don't know. Very difficult to keep it in my hand. But so particular time, particular place, the absence of anything is also recognized. I have one head on my shoulder. I recognize that I don't have a second head. Thank God for it. If you ever get a headache, we get 2 headaches. Or like Ravana, you will get 10 of them. This is called anupalabdhi. Again, based on pratyaksha. All of these are what are used for gaining knowledge of any object in this world. Provided you know that such an object exists. So the whole category of objects in the world follows the same process and fits into one of these categories. The knowledge we gain fits into one of these categories. What about things like punya papa? What about things like svargaloka and other lokas? Something similar, but not quite the same. I cannot get direct pratyaksha jnanam of svargaloka. But I know svargaloka exists. I know punya papa exists. Because it is there written in the Veda. And I have Shraddha in the Veda. I accept the Veda as a pramana. I can neither verify the existence of a Svargaloka, nor dismiss saying such a thing does not exist. I know of nobody who's been to another loka and come back and remembered what he has known. Bhagavan tells Arjuna, no? In the 4th chapter, when Bhagavan tells Arjuna that I told Vivaswan this, I gave this knowledge to Vivaswan many long periods ago. Arjuna is confused. He says, how could he have given that knowledge? He was so far behind you, you're now. Arjuna and Krishna tells him, you have taken many janmas. So have I taken many janmas. I know all of them, you don't know. Arjuna must have heaved a sigh of relief. Thank God I don't know. Otherwise, I have enough problems dealing with what's happening now. Can you imagine the kind of problem I have to face if I have to deal with what happened in many janmas before this? So nobody goes to Svargaloka and comes back with the memory to tell you what is Svargaloka. So we accept Svargaloka as a knowledge because the means of knowledge we use is Shabda, the words of the Veda, of the Karma Kanda of the Veda. The Karma Kanda, which tells us what to do if you want to gain Svargaloka. It tells us Svargaloka is very desirable. There is no way of validating it or disproving it. So many people will say, I accept what it says. I want to gain Svargaloka or any loka for that matter. Vaikuntha loka, whatever loka, because my Shastra, my Veda tells me and I have Shraddha in the Veda. Process is the same. I know that there is something to gain. I know it is desirable. I also know what to do to gain that end. And if I do whatever is prescribed, I will gain that end. This is true of everything. Every religion has this. There are scriptures in every religion which tells you that if you follow this, after your death of this body, you will gain this loka, a heaven or a jannat or whatever it is. In all religions, there's only one additional factor put in. There is an agent, like a travel agent, who tells you, you go to the south of France, I'll organize the tickets for you, but you do all this. You pay me so much, and I will book a hotel. It's a wonderful place. So these people will tell you, you follow what I tell you to do. You accept my words. And you will go into these lokas after this body is fallen. where you will enjoy these things. One big difference between what the Karma Kanda says and what these say. This is one difference. One difference is there is nobody as an operating as an agent telling you, you go here or you do what I tell you to. It simply says, understand what Veda says. Follow what the Veda says. One big difference. Second big difference is, of course, that Vedas tell you, you go to any loka you want. Indra loka, Swarga loka, Brahma loka, whatever. There are so many lokas. And in each you will get certain pleasurable time. When that pleasurable time is over, come right back to this Martya loka. Whereas many others will say, you go to this loka, this becomes eternal. That's a little frightening. This is the second major difference. That is why to translate Swargaloka as heaven or any other word in any other language is dangerous. So these ends which are prescribed in the Karma Kanda of the Veda tell you what you can gain and tell you how you can gain. Then there is this gainer, the knower of that, who has to perform this action. He has to do the kriya. Otherwise, there's no gain. Whether you are following X religion or Y religion, or you're following the Karma Kanda, you have to follow the steps. But because Karma Kanda says these are all limited, all these ends are limited, they are not an end in itself. Question arises, can there be an end to all these ends? I want to go to Swargaloka because I will have a pleasurable time. Just as I would go to south of France to have a pleasurable time. But the time is there. Not only is the time there, you go to the south of France and each day your stock of foreign exchange goes on reducing. Every day in the night you count how much do I left. How long can I sustain this? And there also somebody comes and insults you. You dark-skinned fellow, what are you doing here? Whatever pleasurable time I had is grossly affected. But I want something where there is no such limitation. I'm not limited by time because wherever I go, I have to come back. Wherever I go, along with the pleasure, I also am subject to getting grief, anger, jealousy, and all the other negative things. With that question in mind, one can examine, is that possible? There is only one pramana As far as I know, no other pramana gives you this answer. Called Vedanta. Vedanta says yes. And if you want to gain this, understand what Upanishads tell you. Not just the words of the Upanishads, not just the word meaning or the sentence meaning. They can only give you this much. But what is the purport, the intended meaning, the lakshyartha of what it says? You cannot arrive at this limitlessness by doing. Any doing can only produce limited results. Therefore, there has to be something else if you're looking at limitlessness. Not bound by time, not bound by place, not bound by any vastu, not bound by any person, relationship, situation, or whatever else. Swami Ji, I'm okay as I am. Very good. Please enjoy yourself. It's like somebody saying, this had this happened. One young fellow told me, Swamiji, what I really want to be unhappy. All this argument works because you say I want to be happy. I said, fine, let's examine that. You want to be unhappy. What are you now? He says, I'm unhappy. So you got what you wanted. If you got what you wanted, what should be your state? You should be happy. Or it is contradiction in terms to say that I want to be unhappy. You want to be unhappy and you are unhappy, that means you should be happy. No, that's not going to work. We are all seeking that one thing. And Shastra, Vedanta, once you have a certain level of Shraddha in that, says it is true. Because you are making a mistake. There's an ignorance perpetuated throughout history. There is a wrong connection between what you want and what you do. In fact, there is no connection. Whatever I do has nothing to do with what I want. But Swamiji, since I don't know about that thing I want, which is unlimited sense of happiness, let me take all these little things happiness. I come with all its problems. Please do. Please take a trip to south of France, to Cannes. Please enjoy yourself for the few days that you can get. With all the problems that come with it. You have a small room in a small hotel. Your neighbor from Kumbakonam has got a big suite in the bigger hotel. Already you're starting to feel he has spoiled my holiday. But whatever it you can enjoy, sure. But that is never going to solve the problem that we are beset with. I want to be happy. I want to be happy in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, at home, when my in-laws are there, outside the home, in the office, with my cranky boss. I want to be happy. I want to be happy irrespective of anything. Can this be possible? It is possible if we understand that there is an error in the I. You can do a lot of analysis on it. What is this I? When you say, I know I am happy, in that sentence there are two I's. Which is you? Which is the I? I know I am unhappy. Who knows who is unhappy or happy or angry? Where you have this knowledge in either the world or in the, even in terms of the Karma Kanda, there is that I who is the knower, who knows the object. But here, when that I, which I'm talking about, where I have made a mistake about the I want to know the reality of the I. There is no object. I only want to know the reality of the I because that subject and object as two different things does not apply here. And what is the truth of I? Everything that I've assumed I to be is incorrect. Because it will always give me that I and non-I, subject and object. There is only one place where I can find this truth. Not in any of the books of psychology, not in any of the books of science or medicine, not even in the Karma Kanda. They all have their purpose. They give us knowledge of certain things, objects, including the Karma Kanda. This source of knowledge for I, the pramana, has to be Vedanta. Why? A source of knowledge, a pramana, has to have certain clear characteristics. First, it must have a subject which is unique to it. I cannot say that this is a blue color because I see it's blue color. I cannot say I can hear it is blue. It is an exclusive field of operation of the eye. None of the other pratyaksha or any of the other pramana can give me this knowledge of color. Not only that, once the eye sees it, I cannot shake it off by saying, no, 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 you're wrong, this is red. So what it reveals in terms of knowledge cannot be contradicted. Anadigatam. That knowledge is exclusive to that means of knowledge. Now, I want to know the reality of I. It does not belong to the pramana called I, EY. It does not belong to the pramana called ear or mind. None of these can give me the reality of I. Because these are meant to only see and perceive objects. I is not the object. It can never be objectified. I can make a statement, I am. It's a perfectly valid statement. I exist. Because everybody knows I exist. Nobody can contradict that statement. But any other knowledge of an object, whether it's the worldly object or otherworldly objects, has to have an object in the sentence. I think I will like going to Swargaloka. Has to have an object. I don't like my mother-in-law. Has to have an object. Except this one, because it has nothing to do with the object. I want to know I. And because it must have a pramana, which is whose exclusive field is I, now I start searching because this is, I am not available to all these senses, pratyaksha, and everything which is dependent on pratyaksha. I have to have another means of knowledge, which has this as this specific subject, field of operation. Could it be psychology? No. Psychology also deals with an object called mind. Very simple to figure it out. I say my mind is disturbed. When you say my mind is disturbed, it has to be my mind. It cannot be I. It is some kind of a science, if you want, because there is commonality. And therefore, psychology locates all these commonalities. Given this set of conditions, mind will behave like this. Doesn't always work. It's very loose in the way it operates. But certain commonalities are there. So it is some kind of a science of the mind. It cannot be physiology, it cannot be chemistry, it cannot be physics, it cannot be mathematics, it cannot be astrology. Because none of these have I as the field of operation. None of the other scriptures, including Karma Kanda, have I as the field of operation. The only one which has this, which talks about you, is the last portion of every Veda. called Vedanta, Vedas, Vedanam Anta, whose very field of operation, whose very subject of discussion is you. Once you accept that much, that there cannot be any other pramana, source of knowledge, then you start looking at that carefully. It says Tattvamasi. You need to know what is Tat, what is Tvam, what is Asi, has to be understood. Aham Brahmosmi. What is the Aham? What is the Brahma? That is the study of the various Upanishads. That study opens up an entire vista and has to be taken with a certain amount of Shraddha to start with, because you accept the Veda as a pramana, the Karma Kanda as a pramana for non-verifiable objects like Svargaloka, Punya Papa, etc. Like the many yajnas it tells us we should do to get certain results. And the Jnana Kanda, Vedanta, Upanishads, which is the only pramana which can reveal the truth about I, which can remove whatever erroneous notions I might have gathered. Once that acceptance is there that this is pramana, this is a means of knowledge, just as you refute that this is not read, even though a guru on whom you have Shraddha says this is read, because your pramana says it is blue. You have to then look at what are the, why does the difference come? What is the reconciliation? This pramana says you are Purnaha. You are Ananda Swarupa. I don't feel like that. I'm subject to so many problems. How do you say, Swami Ji, that I'm Ananda Swarupa? So one has to examine what this pramana tells us against what we think we know, what we think we experience. The whole study of Shastra, yes, has to do with this kind of reconciliation. I do Shravanam, I listen to what the Vedanta says as unfolded by the Guru. I let it run in my head and bang against all that I thought I knew, all that I thought somebody else has told me, all the arguments that everybody has come up with, and examine it and see where the differences are. Some of them I can reconcile. Some of them I find more difficult to reconcile than the others, because his argument sounds very valid. I read a book, argument sounds very valid. This is what my pramana tells me. Pramana is Shastra as unfolded by a guru, never just a Shastra. So although the other argument looks very logical, I re-examine it carefully. Some I resolve, some I don't resolve. If I don't resolve, I do Shravanam again and again and again, till every last vestige of doubt is removed. They're called Upanishads. And they are there, like I said, in every Veda. The very word Upanishad tells us what it is about. We will examine that in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya
Purnameva
Purnamevavasishyate
Vasishyate.
Om
Om
Shanti
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 Shanti.
Hari Om
Hari
Shri Guru
Om.
Namaha
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om